It's December 28th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the latest situation over in Gaza. Diseases from diarrhea to respiratory illnesses are rapidly spreading through the Gaza Strip due to extremely poor sanitary conditions there. In fact, all 2.2 million residents of the Gaza Strip are exposed to a level 4 emergency crisis out of a 5-tier classification. South Korea is choking on fine dust and smog from China, with a level so bad that the season's first emergency measures have been enforced in the metropolitan area. Murky skies will clear up nationwide with rain and snow this weekend. South Korean striker Hwang Hee-chan scored his 9th and 10th league goals this season, and Wolverhampton Wanderers a 4-1 win over Brentford on Wednesday. This is his first time to get into double digits for goals in the English Premier League. As the armed conflict in Gaza approaches the 3-month mark, the situation is dire for Gazans struggling to survive in camps. The WHO is reporting a rapid spread of diseases in the region, combined with a food crisis. Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
With many Gazans left with minimal medical assistance due to the ongoing armed conflict in the war-torn region, the World Health Organization said Wednesday that diseases are rapidly increasing in the Gaza Strip as sanitary conditions have become extremely poor. The UN Health Agency says there have been more than 100,000 cases of diarrhea since mid-October, and half of the patients are children under the age of 5. Also, the number of sick people continues to increase rapidly. With many living in close quarters in crowded camps, the number of respiratory infection cases in Gaza has exceeded 150,000, increasing 7-fold in just 45 days. The WHO added that other illnesses such as meningitis, skin rash, and chickenpox have also been reported, and many residents appeared to have symptoms of jaundice and even hepatitis. According to the World Food Program, all 2.2 million residents of the Gaza Strip are in a state of acute food insecurity, adding that the region is currently in a level 4 emergency crisis out of a 5-tier classification. Level 3 or higher is considered an acute food crisis. Combined with the food shortage, Palestinians are also facing drinking water shortages as facilities capable of supplying water are repeatedly damaged. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs on Wednesday, a water pipe passing east of Khan Yunis was seriously damaged by an Israeli airstrike on Monday, cutting off drinking water to the entire region. The damaged water pipe was one of 2 water pipes supplying drinking water from Israel to southern Gaza. UN organizations fear that the water shortage will exacerbate the dire health conditions of Gazans, especially children, who are particularly vulnerable. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
This year, 2023 was a rocky one and ends with 2 major conflicts ongoing, the Israel-Hamas War and the Ukraine crisis. Not only have they affected tens of thousands of innocent civilians, but the war have also put a spotlight on risks to the Korean Peninsula. Bae-eun-ji reports.
On October 7th, the Hamas militant group launched an unprecedented surprise attack in Israel, which stunned the country and killed hundreds of people. This is a war that's happening thousands of miles away, but an expert says it could still pose a risk to South Korea, as much of Washington's focus is centered on the Middle East, rather than North Korean threats.
Already, the North Korean issue for the Biden administration and United States as a whole is not top priority at all. But because of this Israel-Hamas war, the North Korean issue is getting lower in the list of the foreign policy. So it makes some kind of negative effect to the Korean Peninsula.
He added that North Korea is also using this chance to be more critical of the U.S. for supporting Israel. In fact, it appears that the North is supporting Hamas. The Israeli military said about 10% of the weapons used by Hamas during its attack on Israel on October 7th were manufactured in North Korea. At the same time, the North has also been able to make strategic moves and strengthen military cooperation with Russia this year through the war in Ukraine. In September, the North's leader Kim Jong-un even held a summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin, highlighting their strong cooperation. This sparked concerns of further arms deals between them, as it's widely believed that North Korea has been able to gain what they want by providing munitions to Russia.
Russia and North Korea have been building close ties, especially through their rare summit this year. Russia was supported with weapons and North Korea has been able to gain military technology. This transaction is how the Ukraine war has greatly impacted the situation on the Korean Peninsula.
These security risks are especially concerning as they come at a time when the North has conducted 5 ICBM launches this year, the highest number in a single year. 배은지, Arirang News.
South Korea has signed a contract with the U.S. to purchase 20 additional F-35A stealth fighter jets, with plans to deploy them starting from 2027. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration announced on Wednesday that they had concluded the letter of acceptance for additional procurement of the F-35A. These F-35A stealth fighter jets can covertly penetrate deep into enemy territory for precision strikes. Currently, South Korea operates 39 of them, and this latest purchase will bring the total to 59. Seoul believes the latest additions will feature significantly improved capabilities in terms of threat response, security functions, and weapons operations, helping strengthen its deterrence against North Korean threats. North Korea is in the middle of its year-end key plenary meeting, reflecting on 2023 and planning for 2024. On the second day of the meeting on Wednesday, the leader Kim Jong-un apparently proposed a militant task that would speed up war preparations. Let's turn to Dr. Mark Barry for more. Welcome back, Dr. Barry.
Yeah, good morning. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Dr. Barry, Kim Jong-un reportedly called 2023 a year of great turn and change. And he also proposed a so-called militant task that would accelerate war preparations. What do you think he means by those comments?
Well, it's been an important year for North Korea to show what it can do, that it has not gone under from all the stresses of the pandemic and the economic difficulties, and they had a particularly relatively good harvest this year. But, you know, the thing that I think sets the tone more than anything is in his speech from Tuesday, where he talks about the dignity of proving that they have the dignity of a genuine power and the fame of a strong one, and talking about the importance of independence, which is a very important word, self-sustenance or self-reliance, and self-defense. So this is what they're really about. And if you see that as the core of how North Korea sees itself versus the world, then you could see how everything else springs from that. The phrase that you mentioned about the grave political and military situation and it's reached an extreme due to the anti-DPRK confrontation moves of the U.S. and its vassal forces, which Kim claims is unprecedented in history. Well, it's unprecedented in his term of office and probably in his father's term of office, but certainly not in his grandfather's term of office, who led the North through the Korean War. But it's reflecting a very, very stressful environment. But I think the fundamental value that Kim is trying to achieve is to maintain independence. Because when you're weak, whether it's militarily or economically, others will take advantage of you, and that will mean the end of the regime.
Definitely. And these comments are just a fraction of the meeting that is expected to last for the entire week. But what we do know is that Kim Jong-un will deliver a message, at least at the end of the meeting, or even a New Year message. Now, Dr. Barry, what kind of policy directions do you think to come out of such a speech, if there is one?
I think there probably will be, because it's been a pattern since 2020, and it seems to have worked. Although he's not afraid to speak in public, and I'm sure excerpts will be shown on Korean Central Television, but I think what we've seen in the past 2 days will probably culminate in a speech that will address more specifically the goals of 2024. And by the way, all throughout these summaries of remarks that we've seen, they're halfway through a 5-year plan. And what Kim is saying is, hey, we're doing pretty good. I mean, by their standards and by the propaganda value that it has to say that they're halfway through. So we can presume that they will continue to develop missiles and to develop all sorts of other defense preparations. And it's very astutely done to be as cost effective as possible, and particularly to project a larger image. Because, for example, yes, it was a successful satellite launch in November, but nobody would say that the image resolution of the satellite is worth anything. You know, they can buy it online, you know, from a commercial company.
Right.
So, you know, but we can pretty well see where he may be headed in his speech. But the important thing is that maybe there'll be some clues for the U.S. In the speech, because he's aware it's an election year and he doesn't know who's going to win. He doesn't know who's going to ultimately prevail, and what sort of processes may happen even after the election that will create confusion. And the U.S. has been through that several times. So Kim may dangle a few things in a very clever and astute way, because he doesn't want to he wants to hedge his bets, basically, and to make sure that he preserves his interests no matter what happens in the U.S.
But we should probably expect those messages to South Korea and the U.S. to be not so friendly either this time, right?
Oh yeah, because he has to come across that way. But I have to say one thing, which is that there are certain statements made, particularly by the ROK recently, that have not been helpful. And actually the most unhelpful one is a surprising one, which is a statement from I guess the press spokesman for the Unification Ministry, that the ROK would go after human rights violators in North Korea. Well, anyone who's a government official is a human rights violator by a certain definition. So when you make a statement like that, and if you broaden its application, this is basically telling North Korea, much like Israel tells Hamas, wherever you are, we will find you, we will get you, and don't think that our country will come to an accommodation at some point with you. You will not be safe, and we are going to go after you. That's the implication. So if that's the kind of rhetoric coming even from a low-level spokesman for one of the ministries, you can understand why the Marxist-Leninist, Kim Il-sungist rhetoric is at this fever pitch that you see in these excerpts of the speeches.
Definitely. Dr. Barry, I'd like to touch upon what lies ahead for North Korea. Next year in 2024, Kim Jong-un, the leader, also turns 40. And it'll also be 12 years since he took power. Any thoughts on these? Yeah.
I think 40 is a fairly significant number in Asia, maybe not quite as important as 60, but it tells one thing, which is I'm not a kid anymore. You know, when he took office in December of 2011, all the North Korean experts, or almost all of them in D.C., were saying this guy's not going to last. He's too young. They're not going to take him seriously. And he only had a year and a half or so to prepare because his father was hedging his bets about whom to choose as his successor, which now helps explain why, by the way, the Jue is being brought forward. Even if she's ultimately not the successor, he wants to give a lot of lead time for her. So if we fast forward to now, yeah, it took him a couple of years to prove his merits, so to speak, and he had to get rid of a couple of people like his uncle in a way that ideally should not have happened in the terrifying way that it did if there had been more time for preparation. But I think, you know, having from 2018 and 2019 met with the South Korean president, met 3 times with President Trump, several times with President Xi, and twice with Putin, including this year, then he's shown I play with the big boys. I swim with the big fish. So it's a way of saying I now have to be taken seriously, and I'm now in a position to be able to set up my prodigy, my children, those from the Kim Il-sung bloodline, as potential successors, even though who the ultimate one will be, only time may tell.
All right, Dr. Barry, thank you so much, as always, for your insight. You enjoy your evening there.
Okay, thank you so much. Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year. South Korea's National Election Commission has announced new plans to improve transparency and confidence in the upcoming general election process. These measures include counting ballots by hand. Our Lee Si-hoo explains more.
There will be manual ballot counting in next year's general election. This is part of the new set of plans announced by the National Election Commission on Wednesday to improve transparency and confidence in the election process. Currently, the ballot counting clerks use electronic ballot counting machines and check with their naked eye whether the machines are currently sorting the ballots. The process has led to suspicions of fraudulent ballot counts using machines and criticism that clerks are unable to properly check the machine's rapid counting. With the announced change, however, clerks will count the ballots with their hands in addition to the electronic counting. Although this will require more clerks and take more time, the NEC said it will help prevent suspicions of fraudulent vote counting that have been repeatedly raised in the past and eventually found to be untrue. Moreover, CCTV will record in real time the storage rooms of ballot boxes and share the footage on large screen monitors at regional NEC offices. Barcodes will replace QR codes on early ballots. In addition, as recommended by the National Intelligence Service, the NEC will prevent wireless hacking attempts on ballot counting machines by employing control programs using USBs only. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Starting next year, foreign national business leaders could be designated as the so-called same person of conglomerates here in South Korea, meaning they would be the chiefs of the companies following a rule change. Park Gun-woo has this report.
Starting from the first day of next year, Korea's Fair Trade Commission has announced that foreign nationals leading Korean conglomerates may be subject to regulation. These individuals, if designated as the same person, a term used for the chief or de facto leader of these conglomerates, will be held accountable under FTC rules. The same person is typically the chief executive of a conglomerate with total assets exceeding 5 trillion Korean won as determined by the FTC. The purpose of this designation is to closely monitor corporate behavior and enforce rules against anti-competitive practices. Furthermore, the FTC plans to implement stricter regulations for companies under the same chief, particularly in their business and financial dealings. The latest amendment introduces 4 exceptional criteria that allow the FTC to designate a corporate entity as the same person, responsible for a business group, even if a different individual is officially in charge. These criteria include the actual controller of the business group does not have an investment in its affiliated company, and the official chief's relatives neither invest in nor hold executive positions in an affiliated company. If any of the 4 conditions is not fulfilled, the FTC has the authority to designate an individual, including foreign nationals, as the same person responsible for the company. This started getting controversial after Coupang, the largest e-commerce platform in Korea, was designated as a conglomerate by the FTC in 2021, and the Coupang corporate body was designated as same person instead of the Korean-American head, Kim Bum-seok. As he has U.S. citizenship, there were concerns that it is unfair under Korean law to other Korean persons because there were no precise regulations for those foreign nationals. But if the amendment gets implemented, it is expected that Kim will not be designated as the same person as he fulfills all of the 4 conditions. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
South Korean striker Hwang Hee-chan continued his sizzling English Premier League form by scoring twice in a Wolverhampton Wanderers 4-1 win over Brentford on Wednesday. Hwang pounced on a loose ball to score his first in the 14th minute before adding from close range in the 28th minute. The 27-year-old, who recently signed a contract extension with Wolves, now has 10 league goals, getting into double-digit goals in the EPL for the first time. Hwang helped his team to its first back-to-back win of the season, despite being replaced late in the first half with a minor injury.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We begin today in the US, where the tech giant Apple has been given the go-ahead to temporarily resume the import and sales of its latest smartwatches. The US Court of Appeals on Wednesday granted Apple's request, which was filed a day earlier when the import ban came into effect. The court has given the U.S. International Trade Commission until January 10th to respond to Apple's request for longer-term pause during the appeals process. The ITC ordered the ban on imports and sales of Apple Watches in October, following a complaint by California-based medical technology company Masimo, accusing Apple of poaching its employees and stealing its blood oxygen level measuring technology, which has been featured in Apple's smartwatches since its Series 6 model in 2020. Apple preemptively stopped selling its Series 9 and Ultra 2 watches last week, but will now resume sales. Now to the US, where the New York Times sued OpenAI and Microsoft for copyright infringement on Wednesday, claiming the tech companies are responsible for billions of dollars in damages. The New York Times claims that millions of their published works were used without permission by the ChatGPT creator, as large language models use data sourced online to train artificial intelligence systems. It said that OpenAI occasionally produced verbatim responses taken directly from articles that are otherwise inaccessible without paying a subscription. The New York Times is the first major American media company to sue the popular AI platform in a lawsuit that could determine the path of intellectual property rights and the advancement of public data-based artificial intelligence. Now, over in Japan, the country's Nuclear Regulation Authority on Wednesday lifted an operational ban imposed over 2 years ago on Tokyo Electric Power's company's Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant. TEPCO has been working to bring the power plant back online to tackle operational costs, but will still require permission from local governments in Niigata Prefecture and surrounding areas to do so. Authorities banned the operation of the nuclear power plant in 2021 due to safety and security breaches. With a capacity of over 8,200 megawatts, the world's largest atomic power plant by capacity has been mostly offline since 2012 due to measures that followed the Fukushima nuclear accident in 2011. Now lastly, moving over to Paris, France, where the famous Eiffel Tower was closed on Wednesday as staff went on strike. The shutdown came on the day the Eiffel Tower marked 100 years since the death of its creator, Gustave Eiffel. While tourists can still access the viewpoint beneath the tower, the 324-meter monument itself is closed until further notice. The strike was announced by the Eiffel Tower CGT union ahead of their contract negotiations with the city of Paris.
Good morning. It's a dusty start to the day with the season's first emergency fine dust reduction measures being deployed in the capital region, that is Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi-do province. And it will be in effect through 9 p.m. tonight. In fact, an ultra-fine dust advisory has been issued to Gyeonggi-do, Incheon, and Chungcheong-namdo province this morning. It's going to be quite dusty all day in the central regions and Jeollabuk-do province. The rest of the country will also see dust levels going up as the day goes on, but not as bad as the west. Nothing much to complain about in terms of the temperatures. They will be slightly lower than yesterday, but it will still feel warmer than what it should be around this time of the year. Seoul tops out at 5 degrees, Daegu, Gwangju at 10 degrees Celsius this afternoon. But avoid unnecessary outdoor activities and wash hands thoroughly and frequently, which should be a regular routine for the next few days, with dust levels staying higher along with these warmer temperatures. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Friday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.